It's all about humanity.
Me pasaste tu máster, así que no sé qué tal, no sé si os va a molar y tal. Quería comentarlo y verlo aquí en Steam con vosotros y a ver qué tal os parece, mi gente. Está guay, el intro. 99.
Human beings. Are they as overpowered as the game's community would lead you to believe? Short answer, yeah. They're the most meta-defining build of all time, and the undisputed top build in the current expansion. But believe it or not, this wasn't always the case. Humans used to get bodied left and right on a daily basis by other players. And it took a pretty long time before the player base learned how to actually make use of the human build's unique abilities. The story of the humans' rise to dominance is a really interesting one. And so today, we're going to do an in-depth look at the humans' abilities, their strengths, and their weaknesses. Because yes, they do have weaknesses. We'll also go
De hecho, somos una mierda,
and finally look at the steps human players took in order to reach their dominant status. First, their unique abilities.
Wow, qué bonito ha sido esto de ver. Como la creación de todo.
But I'll recap here and also go into more detail. First off the bat, we have their ability to throw things. Other builds can throw things, but humans can do so harder, faster, and further than anyone else. The reason for this is their body structure. Bipedal builds are tough to balance, both in the game development sense and the center of mass sense. Throwing an item with any real force behind it requires serious balance, achieved only by having shorter arms and longer legs. This is why humans can launch projectiles at deadly speeds, whereas other primates kinda just lob things without putting much effort into it. If they tried to, they would knock themselves over. Even if chimpanzees could figure out how to craft a spear, there's no way they could throw it hard enough to deal any significant damage. Next, their stamina regeneration. Humans can chase down anything. You try to run from a human, you might outspeed them initially, but you'll run out of stamina much sooner than they will, and they'll catch up to you while you're in your weakened state. This is partially because of their superior balance again, but mostly it's because of the human build's unique choice to not spec into fur. This gives them access to the extremely broken ability Sweat. Every other current build recharges stamina by using the move Pant. This works great, but it does require the user to stop running. Sweat, on the other hand, works better while moving, massively extending the distance a human player can run. They've got a few other important abilities that are essential to their kit, but aren't unique to humans.
Me parece súper interesante. ¿Tapo los subtítulos? Ah, espera, dame un segundo. Que no sabía que tapaba los subtítulos. Dame un segundo. Ahí.
Among mammals, but some birds can pull it off too. In humans, the ability to speak allows them to use one of their signature moves, Teach, which drastically boosts skill point gain, mitigating the main penalty a player receives.
¿Qué pasa, Vanessa, mi niña?
Humans and birds also share another unique trait, which is being able to stand upright. Standing upright is extremely useful for dealing with stealth builds that might normally be using tall grass to hide. Tool use also might be thought of as a human-exclusive move, and it certainly is the most effective at humans, but it turns out a pretty wide array of other builds can also do it. Birds, primates, cephalopods, and even fish can use tools on occasion. But sweating and throwing, uniquely human. Now onto their weaknesses. And yes, it's true that currently most human players can subvert...
Debilidades. El vídeo es 3 minutos de cosas que son buenas, ¿vale? Ahora vamos con las debilidades. Son 8 minutos de vídeo. Queda más de la mitad, ¿eh? Debilidades, chat del humano.
Recognize that without equipment, the human build isn't necessarily unstoppable. The decision to not have fur granted humans a massive buff to mobility at the cost of stealth. In the mammal faction, fur is a prerequisite to all the major stealth abilities like camouflage.
No tenemos camuflaje.
Stealth abilities means getting in close on their targets is a serious challenge. The human build's lack of fur also means they have very low defense, both from physical attacks and from environmental effects. Bare skin offers almost zero armor, to the point where even players from lower weight classes have no trouble.
Somos one-shoteables, chat.
And bare skin also takes quite a bit of damage from the sun too. Humans are also pretty limited when it comes to the power stat. Physically, they're the weakest of the great apes, and don't really have any good options for dealing damage. They lack the classic high damage bite attack that nearly every other non-herbivorous build relies on, instead having to resort to blunt attacks like punch and kick, which we all know aren't very effective against builds that have thick fur or skin. The last major weakness I can see is that they're pretty bad at dealing with stealth. The lack of night vision means darkness can really hamper their ability to locate targets, and their lack of a strong sense of smell means camouflage is especially useful against them. Okay, now let's talk about matchups. Obviously, a key feature of the human build is being able
Tío, me parece súper interesante esta mierda. Es que en verdad estamos mazo mal hechos.
The human's best matchup is going to be medium-large mammals.
Medianos grandes.
piercing damage is quite effective versus builds with thick hide, but on defense they're actually pretty awful. A human's only option on defense against a large mammal is intimidation, unless they've got some crazy high level equipment, but I'll make a video on power creep later. Classic human equipment cannot stop a charging tank main unless the intimidate attempt works. But overall, this matchup is one of the reasons humans became top tier. Hardly any builds have favorable matchups against tanks. But that's not to say humans don't have their counters though. As I said before,
tenemos
stealth can be really
counters.
effective against them due to
Ojo,
their lack
¿cuál
of
es el
a keen
counter?
sense of smell and night vision. Humans have the ability to win pretty much any fight as long as they've got time to prepare. But taken by surprise, humans have a lot fewer options.
No, claro. O sea, nos pillan por sorpresa y nos abren el culo. O sea,
Even when a
literal.
human has a ranged weapon, players with high aerial mobility are pretty safe during flight. Now, as far as I know, there aren't any bird builds powerful enough to one-shot humans, which is important because blood
One-shotear a los humanos.
are actually quite effective against birds. Birds have hollow bones that are resistant to tension and torsion, but not compression. This is the opposite of mammal bones, which are resistant to compression and tension,
Hostia,
but not
no
torsion.
sabía esto, ¿eh?
The point is, birds aren't the best choice against humans, but flight has been unlocked by
No
4
sabía
different
eso.
classes in the game. Birds, which we just discussed, aren't a good choice. Bats, which do even less damage than birds. Reptiles, which unfortunately had their aerial builds banned in patch
Les banearon en el
1.1.
1.3.
Insects. Flying eusocial insects have by far the best matchup versus humans in the entire
Sí,
game.
sí, los insectos son los contra más pequeños, más probabilidades de que salgamos perdiendo. Por eso la gente se asusta tanto de los pequeños. Pero si lo veis, está en la naturaleza. O sea, si veis cómo actuamos frente a algo grande o algo más o menos de medio o mayor tamaño, pero que sea más o menos equiparable, que podamos pegar, actuamos de una manera mucho más fácil que contra algo pequeño, porque lo pequeño, no, la única manera es usar algo, porque no te puedes defender. O sea, no sabemos defendernos de una araña, no sabemos defendernos de un avispón súper tocho. ¿No? ¿Qué hago? ¿Le meto un puñetazo al aire? Pues lo va a esquivar 100%. O sea, es más, lo mismo hasta me hago daño. O sea, soy un normal. Contra el veneno somos una mierda. Contra el camuflaje somos una mierda. Si nos pillan, somos una mierda. No tenemos pelaje. No tenemos manera de camuflarnos. No tenemos manera de aguantar temperaturas extremas. Tanto en calor como en frío. Nadamos muy mal. Corremos muy mal. Simplemente tenemos aguante, persistencia y, entre comillas, inteligencia. Y un poder bastante tocho de poder lanzar objetos que hagan mucho daño. Porque un animal generalmente no está hecho para lanzar objetos. Pero esto se ha ido desarrollando conforme ha pasado el tiempo. Si te fijas, tenemos como un 10 o 15% de cosas buenas, que no son ni buenas, prácticamente son como más utilidades que buenas. Y todo lo demás somos una mierda. O sea, si a nosotros, cualquiera de nosotros, nos dejaran en un clima, yo qué sé, te vas al Ecuador, tío, o al Nilo, o movidas así, nos morimos. O sea, nos puto morimos. Porque pensaríamos un poco con la cabeza y lo mismo cambiaría un poco la situación. Pero yo creo que el 98 o 99% de la población se muere. O sea, es literal. O sea, somos una basura como especie humana a nivel físico. A nivel mental, pues tenemos aguante, entre comillas, y bueno, pues se supone que pensamos un poco por subsistencia y podemos sobrevivir. Porque si no, nuestra especie se hubiera ido a la mierda. Pero es que si no se fue a la mierda antes, sería porque antes sí teníamos más como instintos de supervivencia que ahora. Ahora mismo, a día de hoy, si nos quitan la tecnología y si nos quitan bueno, la tecnología, vamos a dejarlo de ahí. Los únicos que podrían llegar a subsistir son o los que viven en el campo porque saben hacer un fuego, porque saben sacarte una herramienta en un momento con un puto palo y una piedra, porque saben esa gente y para de contar. Y para de contar. Entonces, bueno, hay gente especialista que trabaja en las armadas y demás. Esa gente también, pero porque están preparados para eso. Y mucho más. Esa gente son élite. Pero si nos quitan de esto, que se nos queda un 1% de la población y dando gracias. O sea, tiene una locura, en verdad. ¿Cómo? Es decir... Hostia, ¿puedo mover los subtítulos? No lo sabía. Pues los pongo aquí. ¿No? Los pongo aquí y me pongo yo aquí abajo. Pongo ahí.
Who've chosen that as one of their prestige abilities is pretty small.
Es bastante pequeña, pero no lo he leído, tío, que soy el retrasado
But the
mental.
amount of human mains who've chosen that
¿Quién eligió esa como una de sus habilidades de prestigio?
as one of their prestige abilities is pretty small.
Ah,
Humans'
bueno, porque
lack
te
of fur
refieres
means
a...
they have no innate defense against stings. Stings also have the chance to proc the anaphylaxis debuff, which can actually lead to a game
Debufo.
over. And it's for this reason that the high score for human eliminations belongs to the Africanized honeybee, known better by its community-given name, the killer bee. And even if the stings don't proc the allergic reaction effect, they will still definitely achieve their primary goal of dropping their resolve to 0 and granting you control over the territory. And we can see that lately the viability of killer bees has only been growing now that they've expanded their territory outside of Africa. Which brings me to my main point. Are humans overpowered? Well, just like the Africanized honeybee, humans really only became OP once they escaped the African server and invaded other areas. Notice how humans took down megafauna across every terrestrial server except Africa. The African tank mains have the matchup experience and counterplay options to deal with the vast array of skills humans have access to. But the rest of the community was totally unprepared to deal with the rapid invasion of new human mains invading their competitive scene. In other words, the devs could have prevented the massive destabilization of the current meta if they'd region locked humans. Staying competitive in the meta requires a good player constantly be leveling up their skills. There's no better example of this than the rapid rise to dominance that humans experienced. If you'd like to level up your own skills and unlock new ones, I highly recommend Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community
Skillshare.
with 20,000 classes in design, business, technology, and more. Premium membership gives you unlimited access to
¿Qué es esto, chat? ¿Qué es esta mierda? Full publicidad, ¿no, perro? Full publicidad. Que son normales. Está guay el vídeo, ¿eh? Está bastante guay. No me esperaba este vídeo ni de puta coña, la verdad. No esperaba este puto vídeo ni de coña. Está bastante guay porque en verdad te enseña qué puta mierda somos. Que es literal, que es lo que se estaba comentando. O sea, no somos mucho más allá de lo que nos pensamos. Somos un puto grano en la tierra. Y en el universo ya ni te cuento. O sea, somos una mierda. Yo lo he dicho siempre, estamos mal hechos. Olemos mal, no tenemos olfato, oímos mal. Nuestra voz solamente es para hacer guturales y emitir sonidos de mierda. Muchas veces no vocalizamos. Tenemos un montón de enfermedades. No tenemos piel, no tenemos todo lo que os he comentado antes. O sea, realmente estamos muy mal hechos. Solamente hemos sobrevivido porque porque hemos usado la cabeza para sobrevivir en su momento. Si no, olvídate. Porque eso y que podíamos lanzar objetos. Y ya está. Lanzar objetos y usar la cabeza han sido nuestro mayor logro. Como especie. Nuestro mayor logro, tío. Eso y después el fuego, obviamente. Eso ha sido la evolución. Pero... O sea, no somos mucho más allá de lo que... Sí, somos mucha gente, pero somos mucha gente porque ahora mismo... usamos tecnología, pero si nos ponemos de manera equitativa con cualquier animal, desaparece toda la tecnología, chat. Desaparece todo lo mecánico, desaparece absolutamente todo. ¿Y qué nos queda, tío? ¿Qué hacemos? Volvemos a tener que usar un palo o una lanza para intentar cazar. Y sí, sobreviviríamos. Pero probablemente nos extinguiríamos. Yo creo que nos extinguiríamos. Si nos quitan absolutamente todo... tendríamos la vida muy jodida. Se crearían incluso enfermedades, porque morirían, ya os digo, el 98-99% de la población moriría. 100%. O sea... Es una movida, tío. Es una movida, tío. Es una movida. Es que mal hechos estamos, tío. Yo por eso admiro mucho a la peña que va, o sea, que está sometida a un montón de niveles, rollo se va al desierto, tal, no sé qué. Y me admiro mucho a la peña que está en el ejército, no porque está en el ejército, sino por cómo son de élite frente a cualquier situación medioambiental. Me refiero, si hay un clima bajo cero, lo aguantan que flipas, saben sobrevivir, a eso me refiero. A la capacidad mental y física que tiene esta peña. Y aún así son una mierda, porque os recuerdo que siguen sin tener camuflaje, siguen sin tener pelaje, somos una basura, tío, como especie que flipas, tío, pero que flipas tú.
It's all about humanity.